against some of the things that the president has done. I want to hold China accountable, but I also want to make sure we're protecting our farmers. They're not looking for a handout. They're looking for an opportunity to be able to sell their soybeans in communities. And again, that shouldn't necessarily be a part of this intellectual theft focus that we need to have and make sure that we stop.
This one is submitted from Owen Merck of Crystal Lake. As someone who doesn't remember a time without the internet, I see the web as the ultimate American dream. A website, no matter their capital or funding, can get traffic if they merit it. How can this be preserved with the repeal of net neutrality?
Well, it's still going now. The internet is functioning well. I was just on it this morning, and this change has happened. There was a lot of people know so much about net neutrality, and many don't. There was a change back 4 or 5 years ago of doing away with Title II, I think it was Title I or Title II, of who would ultimately be responsible for overseeing and stopping abuses or limitations of people's access to the internet. And so it was really, there's a battle between the Federal Trade Commission and the Federal Communications Commission, FTC and FCC. It's a turf battle that has gone on for a lot of years. And there's a lot of concern over whether if this is taken away from the FCC, where it was switched a few years ago, and brought back to the FTC, would it put additional higher prices for people who just want to start up an internet business or whatever? I've studied this, I've talked to people, I've talked to entrepreneurs who have started businesses. They still see great opportunity there. I still believe the FTC is the right place for this to be overseen. They can put real penalties on violators, people who are abusing, limiting access, giving access to certain entities and not to others, and they can institute fines that can go back to consumers. FCC is not able to do that. The other thing that I still do think is important is that there's, our lives have changed, and the access to our information, especially medical information. If, God forbid, one of us were in a horrible car crash and we're a little ways away from our hospital or doctor and went to get care, we want to make sure that emergency room is able to get access to our information as quickly as possible. I think it does make sense for there to be some high-speed channels of access of medical information between medical institutions. And I think that is something that is possible under the current state of affairs where things are at this morning. Again, this has changed in the last couple months. I think most people haven't noticed any difference in how things are working in their own access to the internet.
James Martz submitted this question. If we had a constitutional amendment to balance the budget, how would we do it if we continue to give tax breaks to the 1%?
I would be all supportive, completely supportive of it. I think the way you balance the budget, it's twofold. One is to stop spending money we don't have, to have real appropriations processes that go through the House and Senate and onto the President. That hasn't happened. We've been living under continuing resolutions for the most part. We've passed a couple budgets. One of them was an idea that I had pushed when I first got elected, still support the idea that if we don't pass a budget, members of Congress ought not get paid. Our pay ought to be withheld until we pass a budget. I think it's that fundamental as far as a responsibility that we have as members of Congress. And it's an accountability tool that the voters have to be able to look and see, are we doing what we said we're going to do? So it is living within our means. We've passed appropriations. We did it in the House this year, the quickest it's ever been done, of passing all 12 of our appropriations bills through the House. The Senate only has passed one package. I think it had 3 different appropriations, so 3 of the 12 that they've done. So we need help there. The other thing with having real appropriations, that is living within our own means, recognizing that families, we can't spend money we don't have, that we've got to live within our means. Government and federal government ought to be doing the same thing. I think the other thing that's really important is a growing economy. And we've seen just how phenomenal the growth has been over the last months. Just a couple of years ago, we were being told that we will never, it's unrealistic to think we'll ever get above 2% growth again, that the new normal is somewhere between 1.5 and 1.9% growth. Well, now we're averaging well over 3% growth this year so far. This last quarter, we were over 4% growth. as I travel around, again, the biggest change that has happened in the last 8 years is, as I go around, I heard over and over and over again as I was running back 8 years ago, of the number of people that were unemployed or people who had a couple part-time jobs trying to find a way to get to the end of the month, to start all over again, to do the same thing the next month. As I travel around, so many people are working, so many people are working in jobs that have career-paying opportunities, which is absolutely what they want, and we want to make sure that they can have going forward. So we need to make sure that we've got policy that continues to allow this economy to grow, to provide opportunities for all. One of my heroes is Abraham Lincoln, and one of the things he talked about quite a bit was this idea of the right to rise. That it's not a guarantee that everybody's going to reach a certain level, but we all ought to have that right, that that ability to pursue our dreams. And I honestly think we're seeing that when we see the lowest in recorded history of our economy, the lowest level of unemployment for African Americans. It's still too high. I still want it to be lower, but it's the lowest we've seen in history of recording these numbers. That's awesome. Same with Latinos, where it's the lowest number of